Hi, it's Monday morning, and it's time to do painting, maybe, and decal, maybe. I don't know, stuff with Dyson Dungeons modeling things. So, this is a rough start. So let's start over. Good morning. It's Monday, a little bit after 10. So that means that it's time to resume work on the Star Trek command module, command bridge. This thing that I've been working on that actually ends up looking like this. I'm going to take the paper towels off, which have been protecting it from dust and things like that, and show it to you, and maybe I'll just leave it on screen for a while. Why not? That's become a trope of this show. Why not? Why? Why not? There. That's the command bridge. Thanks, camera guy. Ooh, look, a pan. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, I'm panning bridge. I could probably pull the camera down and to a view like that. Maybe. Yeah. So I know there was someone in chat a couple of people in chat on Friday who wanted to see this because it was covered up. So I'm gonna leave it out here and then do that kind of thing again probably in a little while if people show up in chat and want to see it. And what I will do in the interim is pull out here. These are the things. These are the only things left of this model before it's completely completed. And that's the figures of the characters. And I've decided that they're the evil characters from an alternate universe. Spock, I think, has a goatee. I'm told that Sulu has a scar. I'm not sure how I would paint that. That doesn't look like Kirk. Everybody I've asked says I agree. This does not look like Kirk. It might look like Pike. You can't see what I'm even talking about. Camera guy, come on, get on. So yes, maybe I will paint these to look like the evil versions of them, or a facsimile of, or an approximation of, or sort of like it. So, the Spock looks ancient and very grumpy, and Sulu looks, also old, and what is supposed to be Kirk doesn't look like Kirk, and maybe looks like Pike from the not Strange New Worlds, but Pike from the pilot. So these, if you can see them, there's these little squiggly bits here on the arms. They're supposed to be painted white, and the badge is supposed to be outlined in black. But I don't know. If they're evil, I might outline the badge in red and make those red. I'm not really sure. What to do about that. Other members of Dyson Dungeons aren't available right now to give me advice. Guess I could, I could keep painting these. I was held up a little bit because I don't have the blue paint for Spock's tunic. I found some yellow that kind of works for the other two. And I had this paint, but it got all gummy because it's old. But I put a whole lot more thinner in it. I've been shaking it up and stirring it and things. So I think I'm going to start by testing to see if this has gotten any more usable than it was before. Yeah. That brush is stiff. It's got stuff in it. I need to clean that. You know what? The main issue of the day is trying to come up with some sort of monologue because there's not much to talk about. Well, it's very thin now. I put a lot of thinner at it, figuring, well, how can I hurt it, right? It kind of lifts itself off the surface. I'm gonna see what happens. Do a little test. I had already tested on the back of Spock once before. No, it's still not going to work. I think this. This is an X jar of paint. Usefulness has disappeared. So I really didn't feel like driving all the way to the hobby store just to get little paint for Spock's tunic. And, a color that I probably wouldn't need or use again. So I didn't. So there's really not too many options. The real option is to paint it, pick another blue, just a different blue color. It may or may not work. I mean, I've got some other blues, so I could use them. And since I'm not taking these figures that seriously because they're really not seriously constructed. I think I can. I think I'll just use an alternate blue. I'll look at my color chart and see what other blues I've got. So I didn't make any, giving me the blues or blues clues or any kind of blue references or punny kinds of things. I did a pretty good job resisting that. Okay, well, that's what I'm going to do then. I'm going to pick another blue just so I can get on with this. Okay. And paint Spock's tunic in the blue that I pick, whichever one that will be. And then probably paint their hair. Paint their hair. Does everybody have black hair? They all. Kirk's is sort of brownish. box and Sula's are quite dark. Yeah, so that's the plan, such as it is to pick a blue for the tunic and paint it, and then paint their hair, and then paint the flesh tone, and then touch up the black on the pants and the collar. Yeah, there's a lot that can be done on these. I guess, these are my blues. Whatever you're seeing, it doesn't render the colors all that well. Like reds come out looking like orange, and sometimes they just don't look quite right. I mean, I could just use flat blue, which is kind of a dark color. I'm gonna go with azure. Just that's the color I'm going to use. So that is what it will be. So there, model. We're going to be azured. I need whatever little brush I was using effectively to paint the lines. This is in the way now. I'm going to move it a little further out of the way. Anything over in the interim, we'll see. If I make a really bad grumpy noise, it's because it knocks something over. I just need a couple inches. I think I can get 3 inches, I think, here. You can't see what I'm doing at all, but yeah, what I was doing was just moving it out of the way a little bit. And my camera guy is failing again. Yeah. That's sort of where I'll be working on the spot. Ish. So yeah, these colors are not going to be correct at all, but they're going to be an adaptation, not an exact replica, an adaptation of the evil ones. So like I said, some decisions I need to make are these little wiggly things on the shoulder, on the cuffs. Like Spock has 2 wiggly things and Kirk has 3 wiggly things. I guess signifying their rank instead of little pips. They've got little wiggly zigzaggies on the cuffs of their tunics. Is in the version, the good version of them, they're white. Maybe I'll paint them. Just take some liberties with these guys. And then somehow or other, I need to come up with a box to put this thing in. It's like 15 inches across, 15 inches in diameter, more or less, and about 4 or 5 inches high. So I don't know how I'm going to store it. Submarine was a problem because it's like 2 feet long. And the Apollo is a problem because all the bits and pieces stack up to about 2.5 feet tall. So I've been building these things, and there's no way to store them. The only one I've done so far that could be easily stored is the Savoia. The Lotus Ford, if I ever get around to completing that, I've been kind of avoiding it. Because when I tried to put the decals on last time, it was a disaster. So it's just going to be tedious, I think, putting all the tiny little sponsorship decals on the side of the car. But then I can finish it and that back in a box somewhere. I was almost tempted as the next model because I can think about what the next one will be. Since this is pretty much finished except for these sort of figures. And the Lotus Ford is probably a week's streaming away from being finished. You know, you'd think, well, putting a few sponsorship decals on a car shouldn't take that long, but each one goes on individually. And there's like 10 of them on each side. And they're tiny. Yeah. So buttons. Need to put this on to see what I'm doing. So whether this is correct or not. Hi, Ole Brogger. Thanks for dropping in. I really appreciate it. Oh, here, let me show you what I've done since you've been away. This is the command bridge for the USS Enterprise. Notice my outstanding camera work here. And I think it came out okay. Yeah. Even the chairs came out okay. The colors aren't all quite right because I didn't want to go out and buy special paint just for this. So I used what I had, and so the chair colors aren't quite right, and the panels aren't quite right. And it came with these really, really awful figures, just glued together figures of the main characters, and so I'm going to paint them evil version, because they're really not well done at all. But thanks for dropping in. I really appreciate it. I hope things are going okay for you, that your job isn't too overwhelming. You still enjoying it? And it's not taking you too much time. And I know your daughter's back skating again, so I hope that's going well. Yeah, I know. Well, these came with the kit, so they're really terrible. But I thought, well, I'll just make them anyway. But yeah, I mean, if I was going to keep this around, it would make sense to get, figures that just they were the front and back were molded separately. Oh, I know. Just it's really too bad that work forces its way up on the priority list the way it does. I have to say that not working, except for like this and a few other things that I've been doing, projects around the house, is a whole lot nicer than working. But you've got a long time to go before you get to that point. So, but thanks for dropping in. I really appreciate it. But these figures are so terrible. And look what they did to Spock's face. They made him look. This is supposed to be the original series before it was even called the original series. And they made him look like hideous and grumpy. So he's going to get a goatee. I'm going to paint a goatee on him. I'll probably paint a goatee on the Kirk figure too, which doesn't look at all like Kirk. So I know Kirk in the alternate universe didn't have a goatee, but this one is going to. Yeah. Well, my 68 passed along quite a while ago, quite a few years ago. So, yeah, what is that? That's only another 17 years. It's only, like being a teen. Well, hi. Thanks for the raid. I really appreciate it. Well, since I've got a raid going on, hi, thanks so much. Let me show you what I'm doing here. I am finishing up. Well, this is like the 5th model I'm building, so I really appreciate you dropping in, but I'm finishing up the command bridge. As you can see here, this is a high quality production. My crew is moving the camera around so you can see the command bridge from the USS Enterprise. This model was the 25th anniversary issue, made in 1993, I think it was. So it's pretty old. And you can see it took itself very seriously because of the cover art, the high quality cover art that they put on the model. But this is the 25th anniversary of the Enterprise Command Bridge, it's copyrighted in 1991. So I think it was issued in like 1993. Thanks for dropping in, Ole. And welcome, Raiders. So since you just came in as a raid, I'll explain that Dyson Dungeons is actually puts on a Dungeons and Dragons show. And we stream with the live chat on Sundays at 2. And this stream, this low quality down in the basement workbench stream, is a spin-off of the show because we produce our own dungeon tiles and minifigs. Minifigs like her, okay, that show up in the show. Do those in our own printer, and then I've been painting them on this stream for use in the show. This is my level 2. This is my level 2 character, Furbog fighter. Okay, wearing Tashiranoon armor. That's a long story. And here are some samples of the dungeon tiles that we make, and why this stream happened, because print these on a PLA printer, and then painted them on the stream, and that's how the stream started. And after we ran out of tiles, because we didn't need them on the show anymore, I started building models. And I did mainly vintage stuff. I did a Renwall cutaway nuclear submarine, a kit that was made in the mid-1960s, and I built one then. I bought 3 kits and pieced them together to get enough pieces for one. And then I built an Apollo stack. It's a really cool model, and the box is down there, but it's got all the components of the command, service, and lunar modules, and that was cool. And a Savoia S-21 Porco Rosso's plane. And another vintage kit was a Lotus Ford that won the 1965 Indianapolis 500, and that was a reissue from the 70s of a kit that I originally built in the 1967 or something like that. But these dungeon tiles are cool because they've got magnets in the base, not stick on the base magnets, but stick to each other, little ball magnets, so that they can be rearranged. And thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. And So like this gets printed black and then base coated in multiple layers of brown and wash and detailing. You have doors that work, that kind of thing. And our DM does a lot of design work on these and has recently made some huge improvements in the nature of these models, because we had a new printer that will stop partway through and then restart. But I just wanted to explain to people who just are watching this for the first time that that's why this stream exists, because minifigs and dungeon tiles. And then our DM said, well, keep the stream going. You like to build models. You retired. You bought way too many. You might as well build some. And so why not? So this model came, it's not a bad model. It took a lot of work really to get the parts to fit together, because it was, although fairly well designed, badly molded, like a lot of these old models are. The parts just don't fit. Okay, and you can see that it's, gaps and things in there that, like here, this part here that you can't see me pointing to, this particular panel here doesn't match up with the panels adjacent to it. That kind of thing. But, I got pretty good detail. Managed to paint pretty good detail on the captain's chair and that panel there. So it was kind of fun to do. And it came with these figures that are very badly made. They were not minifigs. They were just, injection molded. The front and the backs were separate. They had to be cemented together. And they had big seams down the sides of the legs and arms. So there was one stream where I spent about 45 minutes, almost an hour, just sanding out the flaws. And, so there's Spock and Sulu, and this is supposed to be Kirk, but it doesn't look like Kirk. It doesn't look like anybody at all. Maybe some people think it looks like Pike from the pilot. And since these figures are so badly made, this one was really bad. The parts, the front and the back were separate, and you can't really see it now, but there were just huge gaps all the way down the arms and the legs that had to be like welded together. And the arms were separate, and so there were gaps between the arm and the shoulder. Those had to be filled in and sanded. So, yeah, that kind of stuff. But since they're so badly made, I'm not going to take them that seriously. The yellow's not right. And so I'm going to, I want to paint them kind of like the evil version of their characters. So I'm going to give Spock a goatee as much as I can. And whoever this is going to get a goatee too, because why not? And Sulu in the series was supposed to have just like a big scar, but he already looks like he's got a scar. So maybe I'll paint, I'll use this divot here in his face and turn that into a scar and make it look all craggy. So what I'm going to be doing is sometime in the future, in the nearest future, is going back to the Lotus Ford, which is in a box over there, and finish that and then move on to another model. But I've got these figures, and so I'm just going to go ahead and paint them. I'm going to paint Spock's tunic in inappropriate blue, and then I'm going to go back and touch up all the flaws. There's big flaws here where the paint scratched or something on the pants and the collar. I'll touch that up and paint their boots shiny black, and I'm going to put a base coat on their hair. And I'll see how far I get. I usually don't get very much done on this stream because because I'm just slow nowadays. I'm working more slowly than I had a million years ago when I first started doing modeling. So what I'm going to do now is in order to see up close so I can get the lines around the collar and the pants well done, is put these on. These little magnifying glasses go over my head and eyes, and if I hold things correctly, I can sort of see what I'm doing. Yeah, there's a splotch on the back. I was testing a more appropriate blue color, but it was an old bottle of paint, an old bottle, and it gummed up. The solvent kind of evaporated, and it can brush it on, but then when you brush the next layer, the next bit of paint, you're supposed to go from the not painted to the painted surface. It pulls it away from the surface and becomes unusable. So I'm not taking these figures terribly seriously, and as a result, not painting them in accurate color. Frequently while I'm doing this, stop talking because I just find that I can't really chat and paint at the same time. I'm using this brush to paint the edges, where one color meets the other. And then I'm going to get a brush with more bristles to paint the rest of the tunic. Okay, that's kind of okay. It wasn't perfect. It will be adequate. So these minifigs, well, I keep calling it that. These are so poorly made that I really shouldn't call them minifigs. They're figures. These figures that came with the model, take a fairly long time to paint because there's so many little steps that have to go through. The different colors and trying to get the lines right and touching up, coming back and forth with the different colors until the boundary lines are adequate. Yeah, this is really badly made. You can tell it's got hands, and there's sort of fingers. There's sort of fingers molded in, but they're not. They're not really in the. What can I say? You can't really see them unless you look at them under magnification. But they're not natural. They're not natural looking at all. This is usually where I stick my finger in the wet paint, just to let you know that that's a thing that happens. And I do have a holder that I could use to hold the model while I'm painting it, but the last time I used it, it kept falling off. So if any of you out there, are really good at modeling, you can tell that I'm not really doing it right. That I should be using the holder and not holding it with my hands. I shouldn't be sticking my little finger up there where it's likely to go into the wet paint. On one of the other figures, one of those with the yellow tunic, I think it was the Sulu one. I stuck my finger in the wet yellow paint and then stuck the wet yellow paint onto the black pants. That's a thing that I do. I have been doing. I just do that off and on. Just never seem to learn that lesson. But it's kind of a raised edge there. There we go. If you've been doing any modeling at all, you know that the paints for flesh tones are usually really not very good flesh tones. And that's kind of true of the ones I've got. So I'm going to have to pick one. I'm just going to pick one and use it. And it'll turn out as it turns out. Okay, well, I've got all the boundaries. Great. A way to hold it. Yeah, I'm going to take one of these. Hi. Yeah, I decided I couldn't get the correct blue to work. The paint is just too gummy and useless. And so I just gave in and I'm using this color, which is blue, sort of blue. I'm going to paint Spock's tunic and then paint their hair, do a base coat on their hair. And then touch up. Well, I'll probably do the flesh tones next. Just pick a flesh tone. I'm just going to pick something. And then do the touch up on the pants and the boots. One thing I noticed about this is that, and they've mentioned this before, is that their tunics, both on cover art and on these figures, are horribly wrinkled. I mean, just absurdly wrinkled. And I'm not sure what the deal was there. I can imagine that when they were making the TV show, it was actually a pretty low budget show that they just had wrinkly fabric and that's the way it was. But in terms of Star Trek canon, I don't know what the explanation is for all of the rumpledness. So what I'm going to do with these tunics is I am going to put a light wash on them. I've got a real light gray wash that I'm going to use on the yellow. I've got a blue-gray wash that I could use on this. I don't know if that's too dark, though. Okay, well, the tunic is blue now. It's not a bad blue. It's okay. Yeah, what I need to do is get the piece of paper that I threw away earlier. I'll be right back. It's high-tech stuff here. I'm going to make a splotch of color, of this blue color. And just like I did with the yellow, I'm going to test after this dries, I'm going to test 2 different colors of wash on it. To see if they look okay. I just want to give a little bit of texture, I guess I'll call it, to the tunics. So I'll just let this dry. It takes about a half an hour to do that. Yeah, I'm going to paint the hair. Sulu and Spock have very dark hair. I mean, kind of black. Spock's is just totally black. And this figure on the box art at least, is kind of brown. I'm going to do to this what I've done with the sorry, I've got something here. You didn't see that. No, come on. Okay. For some reason, the bottoms, these are like sticky tack on top, and you hold them, and they rotate, and they're really quite nice for painting minifigs, and I might use them later. But the bottoms have a really powerful magnet in the base. I don't know why. And it just stuck to the base of the microphone. I couldn't get it off. The other thing it does, I've got 2 of these. I should probably show you how that works sometimes, is the magnets. Yes, I know. Nine's is really kind of food centric. Actually, we all are. But thanks for watching this show. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so I can't set it down because the paint is wet. Here, I can show you this. So this was a disaster once. I'm going to demonstrate while I'm waiting for the paint to dry. Here you can watch paint dry. That's always a thing. Watch the paint dry. So I was painting an Archer minifig. Okay, so I had this delicate bow and arrow, and it was on here, and I had another figure on here that I was painting, and they were both on these stands, and okay, see it move. Well, I set it down, yeah, like that. Okay, it's like what? And yeah, you can, and it did. It fell down, and it smashed the bow and the arrow. I found the piece of the bow, but the arrow went flying and disappeared forever down in the nether world of lost socks and things, and had to make a new one out of a piece of toothpick, a carved one. So these are a little bit helpful and hurtful at the same time. So you wanted to see how this turned out. So I'm going to show you. Do some magic camera work here and pan around the mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you wanted to see it, so I brought it out. There's the main view panel, captain's chair. There's the elevator. Yeah, it does, isn't it? Those took a while. Those were multi-level, multi-layer painting things to get that. You get those done, but I eventually did, and I think they came out okay. I think they, considering they were hand painted, these panels, gray and the white, I think they came out all right. The detail on that came out pretty well. So there, yeah, I wanted you to see it because I knew you were interested in seeing it. So I pulled it out for you. Kind of leave that there for a bit. I guess that's an okay shot. So what I can do with their hair is I can paint them dark gray and put a black wash on them because I want to bring out some of the, for whatever reason, they molded in all sorts of hairlines. And I'm going to paint them dark gray with a black wash. And this one I'm going to paint brown with a kind of a reddish brown wash. The gray and the brown I want to use are the same brand as see if this stuff works. These might have gotten gummy just like the other ones. Chart go. It's a big blue binder that I set down somewhere, and oh, there it is. It fell. Okay, so yeah, I'm looking at my highly sophisticated color chart here. I'm going to be painting their hair dark gray with a black wash because it needs to be pretty dark. And Kirk's hair is going to be this red-brown color with a darker red wash, kind of reddish-brown wash. That's the intent. Yeah. Well, let's see if this paint is any good. See if it has the same problem as the other paint did. So most of these, we bought these big jars of you can't see it, these large jars of paint, okay? Because when we're painting dungeon tiles, we go through a lot of it. Like, and so it's per ounce or millimeter or centimeter or whatever it is that they measure it in. It's like half the price to buy a big jar as opposed to a little jar. But then the jar's set and the paint gels and becomes unusable, and so it turns out not to be a bargain. Back to the things I'm working on here. But first, this is a but first, I'm going to test this paint to see if it has the same problem of pulling itself away from the surface. This is going to be usable or not. No, it's not sticking. I think this jar, there's hardly any of it left, I'm going to defunct that jar. Just get rid of it. It's practically empty. I think there's another one here. Okay, I'm going to be messing around with paint here for a minute. You can see it's essentially empty. I think those are, I'm going to try to save those. One of the things that we do, no, I'm not going to get to the goatees today, I don't think. I'm not sure I can get that far along. I'm going to keep plugging away at it. We'll see. I'm going to get the hair and then the flesh tone. And then probably do, it depends on how quickly the flesh tone dries, doesn't it? So I've got this speed paint that would work really well on the faces, in terms of bringing out the detail and all. But it can't be painted over. And so if I use that and it needs to be touched up, I can't touch it up. I know there's a kind of brand of speed paint that doesn't dissolve. Okay. This is going to be a little weird, but there are these little ball bearings, little metal balls that that we buy, and they help mix the paint. Try to find it. This is why the paint's not working. You can see it. Okay, that's what's happened. It's kind of weird. I'm gonna try something. It sat so long that the pigment just it's gummed up on the bottom. As I was fishing around looking for the little ball bearing, I discovered that the pigment pigment isn't mixed in. It's sedimented down. I wonder if the same things happen to the others. If I stir them with sticks, whether that would help. There's a lot of it. It's just gummed up on the bottom. Yeah, and the mixing thing, doesn't stir it up because it's sedimented so much. It's stuck to the bottom and kind of formed like hardened mud almost. I was using some varnish. I got a massive woodworking project. We're finishing boards to lap board, ship lap it's called, to put on a ceiling in a renovation project that we're doing. And the varnish, satin varnish, does the same thing. In order to make it not glossy, this really, really fine particulate put in the varnish, and it does the same thing. It settles to the bottom and becomes, hardened. And it took a long time to dig it out with like this, except on a larger scale. It was a gallon bucket, not a couple ounces like this. But it took a lot of time to just dig it out of the bottom and stir it in. The stuff doesn't dissolve. Like, you think that the pigments dissolve in the paint, but they don't. They're suspended. And after it sits for a while, they come out of suspension and they just sort of, just sit at the bottom. There's a blob of it there. It's just a hardened pigment. I didn't get much on my hands. That's kind of a surprise. See what happens with this now that the pigment is kind of stirred up. It might be usable. Put a little bit of thinner in it. Oh, the D&D group? Well, some of it was very easy to find because they are Sorya Ansul is my daughter, and Alexis is her wife, and David, who plays Nines, is a friend that goes all the way back to elementary school. So the group, we have been a group ever since we've been alive, practically. It's really easy to put the group together. And we've been playing together for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. I mean, many years, actually, having said years and years and years over and over. Yeah. So when I say that we're a group of family and friends, we are. We are a group of family and friends. It is. It is really a lot of fun. the hard part is to not metagame, because we're together outside of the game, and it becomes pretty easy. It can become pretty easy to metagame the thing. So resisting the temptation to metagame is, I would say, is the hardest part about it. The most challenging. Okay, I'm going to try this and see if this paint is going to work. Yeah, it might. Oh, I need to put those back on. I'm going to be painting Sulu's hair. If anyone is just kind of joining in here, these are not real minifigs. These are just sort of figures that they're sort of figures. No, it's still not working. Well, it was worth a try. That came with the kit. And so they didn't put minifigs in. What they put was injection molded fronts and backs and separate heads of figures that look kind of like the characters from Star Trek. And what I'm doing is I'm discovering that some of the old paint that we have laying around just I haven't used it in probably like 6 months or so, has gone bad. So here's a new jar, fairly new jar. Yeah, I know you can, even though I kind of molded it and, welded it and sanded it. The fronts and the backs came together as separate. And then this figure's arms went on separately as well. I did a pretty decent job, I think, of filling it in and sanding it down so it doesn't look like a movable action figure. Hope this paint is okay. Yeah, that happens with these plastic models, is that, there are all these injection molded parts and they get brought together, cemented together. And anybody who does modeling, especially if they're any good at it, not necessarily like me, but if they're actually really good at it, this is good paint. This will tell you that they spend almost all of their time, pretty much all of their time, getting rid of seams where the parts get cemented together. And I built these models when I was a kid, not this model, but when I built models as a kid, I never really worried about that. All of my models had seams. It showed everywhere. It wasn't until my late teens I started building big Ed Daddy Roth Fink models. It's a thing that nobody likes or cares about much anymore. So you'd have to look them up on the internet. Big Daddy. That was his sort of stage name. His main occupation was making hot rods. He would modify cars and make hot rods. But he also trademarked this figure called Ratfink. And then they made a series of models of some of his cars, but also the Ratfink. And I really liked those. They're very odd. They were not pleasant to look at. My mom hated them. But those were the first models I built, where I tried to do something about the seams that formed when I put the parts together. And I didn't have any filler, any plastic putty or anything like that. So I just actually used paint. I put in excess paint as the filler, so that the Ratfink seams didn't show. His ear looks really different on this side. I paint over his ear? Mm-hmm. Weird. I don't know if I'm on camera or not. But if I'm not, I apologize. But I need to need to be able to aim hold it still and aim the brush. Paint is doing the same thing, even though it's a fairly new bottle. So yeah, what I did was I just took they were testers enamels. They weren't acrylics, and I just built up an excess of paint to fill in the seams on those models, and they ended up looking okay. I think I even did custom color mixing so that the paint on the models would match the paint on the box tops. And then my mom got hold of them and threw them all away because she hated them. It was a sad demise of my collection of Ed Big Daddy Roth Fink models. Really poorly made. Okay, well, there's the base coat of Sulu's hair. Now I need to base coat Spock's hair. Oh yeah. Hmm. Yeah, the Warhammer ones. We um we did Warhammer, my family. Um, my kids and I did Warhammer, but we did the original ones before 40K came out, and bought the big box set with the lizardmen and the orcs and goblins and elves. But yeah, sanding, filling and sanding, filling and sanding. The prep work of doing the models, it was so much easier when I was like 9 or 10, okay, and just slapped them together and didn't worry about the seams showing. But filling and sanding ends up taking more than half the amount of time that it takes to build a model. It's just kind of amazing. And the older model kits, like I said, like the submarine, it was produced in the mid 60s. Really bad quality. I mean, it's hard to describe some of the bad quality of the model. There were a fair number of parts that they were injection molded right, and the two halves of the molds didn't line up, and as a result, there was not only was there a big seam, but the two halves of the parts weren't in alignment with each other. And to sand that down, to get the seams out of the way, the parts became smaller, and sometimes they became small and then didn't fit anymore because the size changed. But that submarine, the Renwall submarine, in some ways was like beautifully designed. The control panels had great detail. Not only did they have dials, with bezels around them, but the dials had like little numbers. There was a clock, tiny little clock that was probably an eighth of an inch in diameter, and you could see the numerals on it. It was pretty amazing. But it was molded onto a piece, like I said, where the two halves didn't match together. So building that submarine, it was not just the fine detail painting, but it was all of the time that it took to reshape the parts so that they would fit. So this hair, once it's dried, I'm going to wash with a black wash, a really dark wash, to make it look really dark, but also to try to bring out some of the texture that was molded in the hairlines. It's got under magnification, it's got beady little eyes, tiny little beady eyes. It's weird, very weird. Okay, I'm glad that paint worked. We'll see if this paint works, or if I've got yet another dead jar of paint. Yep. I just got a mess. Just making a mess. I'm letting trash accumulate again. Keep trying to avoid that. Okay, put that over here. So this is red brown. This is a good color if I can make it work. It's the problem with Warhammer. It actually happened with the kits that we bought. We spent all of our time down here painting these things. Painting orcs and goblins and lizardmen and elves and things, and ended up playing the game once. Really, it was spent all of our time doing just painting the models when we could have just played the game. But no. And they came out looking pretty decent. But it missed the whole point, which was to play the game. We made a big, these were the original ones, right? Not the, oh my, okay. That's just not stirred up at all. Let me see if I can. The right color. Remember this now. Okay, this paint aged and it came out to be the wrong color. It's not even like the original color. I don't know if the paint will work or not. Find out. I mean, if it does, it's an okay color. If it doesn't, well, then it's another example of things gone wrong. Yeah, it's gone wrong. Not going to work. Think. The jar, this is a little newer. So this figure that is supposed to be Kirk but doesn't look like Kirk has a classic 1960s haircut. Called it DA. See how it comes down to a point in the back? Okay. DA for duck's, I'll say the word ass, duck's ass, because it looks like the back end of a duck. And for some reason, that's the haircut he has. I don't know if that was really how it was on the show or not. Oh, the D&D session was great. On 4 cars. Okay, that's a lot of cars. But yeah, it's a good idea to get winter tires on. We had a car once that, it was undrivable. That's what it is. EA, but the A is not tail. And yeah, it was quite popular amongst the not quite hoodlummy, but kind of that group of people in high school. Down to the collar. But I was really surprised when I looked at this. It's like I haven't seen a representation of that haircut since like the 1960s, or even that. Even then, it was like the early 60s, not even into the later ones. There it is. Swept back into a DA. I have to hold this by hand because the sitting figure, not. We can't get it on the holder. Getting an amazingly great opportunity to stick one's finger in the paint. Ooh, look, it's all. There's so much hair here. It's definitely it's got to be a toupee. So there's the classic haircut there. It does date it, doesn't it? To a certain period in time where that was a popular hairstyle. I don't know if it's ever come back. Sometimes these things come back when they shouldn't. Like it was a bad idea at the time, and it should have just stayed a bad idea, but for some reason it comes back. Well, I mean, that's what the hair. That's how the hair is molded. But this figure looks even sillier than it did before. Now that it's got its hair colored, very, very weird. Hard to see where the hair should have been there. Okay, well, Kirk's the not Kirk now has hair colored. Oh yeah, the pompadour. Yep, exactly that. Nonconformists and the greasers. Because, well, yeah, in order to get it to work, they were called greasers because they put, I mean, it was grease. It was in their hair so that it would slick back, look shiny. Yeah, oh, yeah. I wonder. I should have painted it red. I should have given him a red shirt. It would have been funny. Okay. Oh yeah, I was going to test two different colors of wash on this. I have a light gray wash, and I also have this blue gray, this kind of blue gray wash. I want to see how it looks. Oh yeah, I love Oh Brother Where Art Thou. That was a really amazing movie. Yeah. Oh, he used to have he had a whole case of Dapper Dan, and it had to be Dapper Dan. Putting stuff in one's hair, that was a big thing you did back in the 60s. There was this thing, you can look this up since you're looking up on stuff on the internet, is Brylcreem. Brylcreem, a little dab will do ya. That's kind of nice alliteration, isn't it? And it featured, and they kept saying, a woman would love to run her fingers through your hair. And all I could think of was, no, I mean, you've got this grease, this sticky, greasy stuff in your hair. Nobody wants to run their fingers through that. It was. It was pretty cool. I mean, they met like the Cyclops and Scylla and Charybdis. It was an amazing movie. It really was an amazing movie. I don't know about you, but I thought the music was tremendous. In fact, I ended up buying the soundtrack to back in the day. Oh my, yeah, the soundtrack. It wasn't that old, so it wasn't on a cassette tape, but it was on a CD, and I used to play it in the car all the time back in the day. Mm-hmm. Soggy Bottom Boys, yes. I am a man of constant sorrow. I have seen trouble all my day. I bid farewell to old Kentucky, where I was born and raised. Yep. You still have them? Oh yeah, went down to the river, right? The ones the siren sang. That's amazing. That's really cool that you still have those. You know, and then the sad songs like "Oh Come Angel Band, Come and Around Me Stand, Bear Me Away on Your Snow White Wings." Hmm. I think I watched that movie like 3 times and just played the soundtrack over and over and over. Um, I'm just looking at the flesh tones. You know, I mean, just what can you do? They're just going to be flat flesh, and then I'll try to figure out what to do about shading and things later. It always looks so orange, but it is what it is. Where is it? Ah, okay. Yes, Inglorious Bastards. That's another good one. I haven't kept up with movies in a long time. Just the pandemic hit, we stopped going to movies, never really started again. Um, but yeah, there were times when the movies were really good. I'm going to need an even tinier brush for this, for some of this. Ooh, leg fell asleep. So one of these is an even tinier brush. The tiny brush is to get the flesh tone up inside the little dangly bit bangs there. Yeah, I'm going to start with Sulu's face and hands. This is always an opportunity for things to go badly when painting adjacent colors, like his hands, right? And up around the edges of his ears and along the back there between the hair and the collar. But, you know, it has to be done, so best get on with it. This is kind of weird. I've been actually painting on relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons. That does not happen very much. As you could see with this, most of that was spray painted, and the spray painting is done off screen. And so other than painting these panels, okay, which took a fair amount of painting, this model hasn't involved much painting, but now I'm doing all sorts of painting. Oh no, you did? You licked your brushes? Yeah, the Radium Girls, that was bad. And that actually happened to a lot of painters who used oil paints, because a lot of those paints had mercury and lead in them. I mean, the pigments were frequently heavy metals, and so yeah, they ended up getting poisoned as well. but keeping the tip of the brush like that is a tricky thing. This brush has half as many bristles as it did when it was new, because as it gets used and cleaned, or as bristles sometimes go awry, they end up losing bristles, and it actually becomes a much better brush for doing things like this because it's really tiny. This is where these flesh tones I'm always unhappy about. Flesh tones, I don't think Ole Brager once suggested that it might be Army Painter paint. There's a brand of paint that actually has good flesh tones. Yellow didn't cover there. But I don't have those, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to go shopping for special paint for these guys. I might put like a really light brown on wash on these. I'm not sure. Something to make them look a little bit less cartoonish. Although looking cartoonish is kind of appropriate for the figures as they are. Okay, well, there's hands. I'll do some ears. One little tiny little infinitesimal spot there. It doesn't look right. This is where I'm going to try to fix the collar. I have no place to hold it. Sorry, I'm just, yeah, having a slightly difficult time getting it held right. Oh, okay. I don't know if I'm going to try to fix that or not. I got the brush wrong, just holding it wrong, and I got too much on the collar right there. I'll be doing black touch up later, but messed up the hair. Nice. Okay. It was going okay, and suddenly I just made two blunders in a row. I have to come back and fix that. Yeah, once on the collar, and I just tried to make a mess there. So yeah, one on the collar and then one on the ear. Well, requires coming back. In some ways, there's too much detail on the faces. Way too much. It's pretty clear that whoever designed and molded the heads totally different than the people who did any of the rest of this. There'll be a fair amount of working on this. I'm going to probably try to make the lips darker, paint the eyebrows. There's one blot there. The problem with the collar. The problem with the collar is practically invisible. It may end up just trying. I don't know what I'll do with that. But the ear needs to be fixed. And I got much paint in his left eye here. Beady little eyes. The pupil is sticking out here and it's inset there. That's definitely evil Sulu. He's got a poking out eye. Okay, well, there's a Sulu. I can do a Spock's face here. Start with the hands. Sort of has fingers, I wonder. Looks like he's got 6 fingers. Six fingers and a mitten. Yeah. So the designers who designed the body didn't really care, but then they had some people sculpting the faces who just way overboard on the detail and just kind of absurd level of detail. Yeah. See, it looked good from that angle, but it doesn't from this in terms of this. That happens with some frequency is that I'll be painting from like this direction. It looks fine, and then I rotate it, and it looks like the paint went too far. It needed to go further this way, but now it's too far that way. So when I touch up the black, I'll come back to that and move the boundary line. These things just take forever to paint. Part of it is because I am slow. And part of it is it just takes forever to paint. Little dots of paint at a time. But it uses up, it uses up streaming time. So every minute I spend doing this is not time that I'm attempting to get the decals on the Lotus Ford. There are certain parts of building these models that if you look back at some of the older streams, I just avoid. See, it looked fine from that angle, but now, it went down on his pants, right? I need to turn that back, even though from the other angle it looked fine. Make noises. They did give him pointy ears anyway. Let's see if it turned. Yeah, it did. It turned out to be a mistake. Yep, I did it. And I need to touch up the blue anyway. But yeah, I knew I was going to do that. As I got my fingers in the fingers. And got paint on his tunic, and just another opportunity to repaint. I got it. See right there. That wasn't from a slip of the brush. That was from sticking my finger in the paint. Oh, well, it's all part of the back and forth of this kind of painting. I don't know why they made him look so old. I mean, seriously old, ancient, like way craggier than he should have been in the original series. At the time, it wasn't even called the original series because it was the series. It was Star Trek. But his face is just almost ravaged. Definitely will be looking better as evil Spock. Left foot, to bury it in the sticky tack there. He looks pretty weird, doesn't he? Part half painted like that. Oh my, under the chin. Hadn't given that sufficient consideration. I had it right. And then there was like a little blob of paint. Left foot is just not going to stay put. There's ancient grumpy Spock face. Did it again. Yep. I was trying to get it at angle and I missed the spot there. So I wanted to do some gray touch up on the hair. That blue is really scabby. I need to do some re-bluing anyway. Good. What did look at that. I did it again, even though it's on a holder. I put my hand and I got my finger in the paint here and just wiped it right down onto its pants. Nice. Okay, well, I see some room for improvement here. Yeah. In general, it's not awful. There's that. A whole hour to go yet? Good grief. This day is just barely creeping along here. Okay, I'm going to do, get the paint off my fingers first. Yeah, try to do, not this. I'm going to try to do this isn't really Kirk's face here. What he is exactly, but it's not Kirk. He has really big hair, though. Just huge hair. So what I'm thinking is that when they were making this model, they said, "Can we make these figures look like you?" And Sulu and Spock said, "Sure, go ahead." And I doubt that they were happy with how it turned out, but but I'm guessing that Shatner said, "Nope, not going to use my image on some sort of cheap model." And they said, "Well, it's not that cheap. I mean, we're asking way too much for it because it's the 25th anniversary, He said, "I don't care." I said, "Oh, okay then. The captain's figure won't look like you." He said, "Yep, whatever. Not letting you use my image." And so they just made it look like whoever this is supposed to be, that isn't Kirk. So not Kirk, even though in the Star Trek episode did not have a goatee, this not Kirk is going to get a goatee. It's just going to happen. Oh. I messed that up. I'll paint that black again to get the line right. I just had the brush. I should have been doing it from this angle, and I didn't. Now, you might have noticed that this time I did not paint the hands first. See, I learned a lesson. I learned a lesson that if the hands get painted first, that there's a very high likelihood of me getting my fingers in it and spreading it around, because I did it on both Sue and Spock. So much hair. I mean, it not only is a DA, but it's a pompadour in the front. And maybe that was another thing. You know, Shatner wears a toupee. They couldn't agree on the hair. And it could be what happened. But whatever it was, this is not Kirk. This is somebody else. To change that, it's a little brown touch up there. So after this, I have to touch up practically every color. It's just a question of, in what order. Hair first. I think I'll do the black pants and stuff last. I'm seeing spots that need to be re-yellowed and definitely re-blued. So after I'm done with the hands, I almost forgot about those. I'm going to take a quick bio break. Then come back and start doing touch-ups. That's every color. Every color needs a little touching up somewhere. Get the boundaries right. I don't know why he has fists. He's supposed to be at his his control panel on his captain's chair, but maybe he's just angry because he's bad Kirk. Okay, so he's made fists, except here he's got his pointer finger half pointing. Stuck my fingers on his ears. Almost failed in my efforts to not stick my fingers in the paint this time. So this is the only one of the minifigs, figures that has fingers, but the reason for that, I'm pretty sure, is because the arms were molded separate from the body, where they were molded with the body, like on Spock and Sulu. It's just really poorly done. They hardly look like hands at all. But here, there's that. So I'll look around and see if I missed any spots. Okay, other than having to touch up everything, just because it has to be done. He can sit like that. It's kind of clean here. The part of the brush that's hardest to clean is right at the base of the bristles, because the paint will build up there. I think good painters never get paint there. I mean, it doesn't go there. It's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be on the bristles. But I guess I'm not a good painter, so I get paint buildup at the base of the bristles. Right. I'm gonna set these figures out here so you can kind of see them. See what their status is. And then I'll actually move the camera a little bit. There, and you can see them. There they are. What will be happening next when I get back is I'm going to be touching up paint where I got it in the wrong places. So I'll be doing the hair and the tunics and the pants and the collars. Probably I'll do the tunics first, and then the pants and the collars, and then the hair last. Yeah, so I'll be needing the flat black paint, 2 hair color paints, tunic colors, and I'll keep the flesh tone up just in case. So, I'm going to take a break here. Yeah, it might be a little longish. Ugh. What did I do? I put the tweezers in the water because they were coated with pigment. Yuck. Made a mess of that too. Okay, well, that's a feature of this stream, is dealing with messes that have been made, and this is definitely one of them. Never come out. They're not terribly good tweezers, but being coated in yucky paint pigment isn't really helpful. Okay. I do need to take a break. I'm going to put the break screen on because this might take more than just a couple of minutes. I have to check on a couple of things, and then I'll be back and I'll be doing touching up stuff. Surprised when that comes back. All right. What gets touched up first? I think trying to figure out how to hold the Kirk thing. To hold it like this, I guess, while I'm touching up the pants. I'm going to do tunics. Do tunics and then hair, and then pants and collars. It's starting to get tired. I kind of fade away here. As anybody who's watched this always knows, in the last hour it starts to fade. In the last half hour, it gets very fadey. But I wanted to go until 1. There's just a lot to do, so why not? I'll keep going here. And just keep going here. Until I'm satisfied with how this is turning out. Everything looks so much better not under these head magnifiers. You know what I mean? It's just when you put it under bright light and 2x magnification, things don't look nearly as good as they do at a distance under dim light. So that's been my advice to myself. Is I do my best on these things, but then when it comes right down to it for display, what is that? There's a black spot there on the back. I don't know where that came from. Um, my advice to myself for display is don't let anyone get closer than 18 inches. Keep the lighting indirect. There, I did touched up. I just was not careful. Good thing I'm doing the pants next. This little black spots. I don't know what those are or where they're from. Yeah, I'll just keep that here in case I need it again. I'm just trying to make sure that there aren't any missed spots. It looks adequate. So funny looking. There's black spots on this too. Back here. No idea what that's about or why. I'm almost tempted to give him like a full beard. Okay. Wants to flop on its back, it's going to flop on its back. I need to get this out of the way. The magnets on those holders. Grab hold of them. Okay. Do some fixing up on the blue tunic here. There's a little bit more work that needs to be done on this than on the yellow. Yeah, today's a busy day. Do the painting stream. Do another chunk of woodwork. It takes about 3 hours. And then just say that's enough for the day. It's like having two part-time jobs. So this blue just hasn't covered very well. So I'm going to be doing a lot of just putting basically second coating. Really obvious with Spock that the heads, Sulu's and Spock's heads, are too big for the body. But the captain, the not Kirk, is too small for the body. Well, as I said earlier, it's pretty clear that they had like sculptors making the heads of these figs. They tried to make them look like the characters, but they didn't spend any time at all trying to do anything with the bodies. They're just not good. Okay, well, that looks a lot better now. I might have to do more tunic touching up after I paint these little wiggly stripy things on the arms, once I decide what color those are going to be. because these are the evil guys. So I might, seriously, I'm thinking I might make them red. And then the badges are supposed to be outlined in black, but I might do that red too, just so that everybody knows that these are the evil versions, which is why their clothes are the wrong colors. Yeah, there's dark gray. Do Spock and Sulu's hair. Do the black touch up. I want to thank everybody for joining in, and thanks for the raid today. That was really great, and the new follow. That is so much appreciated, because we want there to be lots of people joining Dyson Dungeons, one way or the other. Should be using the tiny brush for this. Should be using the tiny brush. I should be. Let me do it. Hulu has really big ears. What's up with that? Better. One of these days I have to paint eyebrows. I'm not going to do that now. It's too late in the day to have any chance of painting eyebrows without making a mess of things. But eyebrows need to be painted, and then the whites of the eyes and other facial details. The face could just end up taking a huge amount of time of painting and repainting and touching up and retouching and back and forth until it's adequate. I think Spock needs an earring. I don't know how I would do that. It's just a thought. That'd be kind of funny to do. Yeah, I know everything just got kind of silent here as I'm doing touch up. Come on, head magnifiers aren't focusing. To get a managing to get a this. The stream needs to come to an end soon. White spot there. Once in a while, there's just little spots that happens with the paint. I think what happens is it dries and shrinks and pulls away from the surface and leaves little spots on larger surfaces that aren't painted. Yeah, all these guys got eyebrows that need to be painted and goatees that need to be free-handed or scars that need to be embellished somehow. Okay, well, that's about as good as that will get. I'm going to do pants and collars. And then I'm going to wrap up. Yeah, that's about the time it's going to be. And then the paint will dry. And then on Wednesday, I'll be back doing some shading on the tunics and the hair. And if I'm brave, I will start working on their faces. The last thing I'm going to do are their boots, because their feet are either buried in the sticky tack like that to hold it on, or that's the only place I can grab onto Kirk's figure. So the boots will be the last bit. Great. Well, this needs to be cleaned. The lenses have gotten kind of dirty. Yeah, so I'm just collars and pants. I'm going to start with the collar. I'm going to start with Sulu, I guess. Collar is a little asymmetric, but I'm not sure I can fix that. It needs to be, I don't know. This is a great opportunity to take something that's almost okay and turn it into it's not now. I'm just going to leave it. I think that's okay. I'm just checking. I'm using a little brush at first here just to get areas or like around the boundaries between one color and the next. And then I'll grab a bigger bristled brush to do the rest of the touching up. That's adequate. And that worked. Got some hand issues here that need to be fixed. Oh yeah, this is where I stuck my finger in his hand and rubbed it down onto his pants. That was not well done. Well, actually, it was well done. It was extremely well done disaster. A major oops. There's a lot of problems with the pants there. Ooh, I almost did it. I almost made them fly across. I talked about that before. The magnets on the base, they repel each other. Just need to do pants. smashed the head magnifiers into the ring lamp. That was not clever, but that has happened before. Trying to get all the glob of paint off the base of the brush there. There's a lot of it. Look at all that. Wow. How did that happen? I barely used any of this black. This brush is getting close to being dead. There's like 4 bristles left. Okay. Now, I'll go back around and do some, the large scale touching up. Pants. It goes on so shiny it looks wrong, but it does dry flat. I hope anyway. Even the pants are all wrinkled. All of their clothes are just totally wrinkled. I mean, sure, no one wants to take the time to iron stuff when you're out there, exploring and fighting aliens and who knows what, new civilizations and things like that. But seriously, permanent press, that was, I talked about that. It's the only thing I can think of that really, is that they discovered that there is no way to do permanent press clothes without some sort of dangerous chemicals that turned out to be horribly dangerous. Maybe not when you were wearing it, but when it was in the landfills and stuff later on, it mutated into just horrible chemical soups or something. And so they banned permanent press, and since no one wanted to iron clothes, it was just, well, fashion now is wrinkles. It's just the way it's going to be. Okay, so I'm going to just let these sit here like this so you can kind of see what's going on. And then Kirk, there's nowhere to hold Kirk other than his head. So that's where he's going to get, maybe shoulders. I shouldn't say Kirk. It's not Kirk. The captain figure, the unidentified interloper, the alternate universe captain is what this is. I'll have to remember to just keep saying this. The alternate universe captain, whose figure resembles no one. Why are these black spots showing up? Not even on camera, am I? That's great. That's what I'm doing, is I'm touching up all the spots that where the paint got peeled off or fingerprints got put on, all the flaws that developed over the time when I was painting these other colors. So there they are. Base coated. And what will be happening then on Wednesday? Thanks for the follow. I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining in. Oh, yeah, you did. There was a raid Ray joined in, which was really nice. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up today and explain a little bit about Dyson Dungeons one more time before I end in 5 minutes. So the reason I'm painting these minifigs is they're not really minifigs. They came with this model is because they came with the model of the original USS Enterprise command bridge. Okay, and that's gotten finished now. And after I'm done showing this to you, I'm going to put it back on the shelf out of the way so it's not in the way anymore and cover it up with a towel. And these are the figures that came with it, and they're really terribly done. They're not minifigs. They were not molded like that. They were injection molded along with the models, so their bodies are too small. Their heads are too big, except for this one where the head is too small. Sulu and Spock kind of look like Sulu and Spock. This does not look like Kirk. And I've decided because the models are so poorly made that I'm going to paint them as a, not exactly like, but similar to the evil alternate universe characters. So I'm going to do things like I'm going to edge the badges in red instead of black. And I'm going to make these little lines on their tunics red. And Spock's going to get a goatee. And Sulu's going to get a big scar. And this figure, which isn't Kirk, I don't know who it is going to get a goatee too, even though that wasn't the case in the alternate universe episode. But Dyson Dungeons is about our Dungeons and Dragons show, which streams with a live chat on Sundays at 2, and you can catch all the old episodes on YouTube or listen to them as a podcast. And so I talk about that, and the reason this stream happens at all is we do our own dungeon tiles and minifigs for the show, and they get painted on this stream, but when there aren't any minifigs or dungeon tiles that are needed for the show, I've been working on models, and most of the models are vintage models. One of them, none of them are quite as old as I am, but a couple of the ones I've worked on are as old as the ones I built when I was a young teen or preteen, like the Renwall submarine. So this is like the fifth one I'm working on over the last couple of years. Most of them have been turning out okay. I'm going to finish up these figures probably later this week, Wednesday and Friday. It might go until Monday. And then I'm going to go back to the Lotus Ford, the model of the 65 Indianapolis winner. I built the original of that when it came out in 1966. But this one is a reissue that came out in the 70s. And it's coming along pretty well. I've got some aftermarket decals so that they were more authentic sponsorship decals. But if you come back in about a week and a half, you'll see me working on that. So thanks for dropping in. I really appreciate the new follows. This stream goes on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 until 1 Eastern time. It's currently daylight time. It'll soon be standard time. But 10 until 1 Eastern U.S. time. And that's what'll be happening. On Wednesday, I'll be doing some shading on the tunics. I'll just be putting some wash on it to tone down the colors a little bit. Putting some wash on the hair to show the detail of that a little bit. And then starting to work on their faces, which we'll see how that goes. Sometimes I'm pretty good at tiny little detail stuff like the control panel there. And sometimes the brush just goes awry or there's too much paint on the brush or something. And then I have to wipe it off and start over. We'll see what happens. So thanks, everybody. Hope to see you again on Wednesday at more or less 10 until more or less 1. Take care. Bye.